I'm in need of a great big grin. I know where to go for some oxytocin when the whole world seems to be cold and mean. I know who to call for some dopamine. I'll be your Lucy, you'll be my Ethel, I'll be the Thelma, you'll be Louise, and we'll ride together till we reach the rainbow's end. Thank you for being my friend.
Welcome to Anatomy of Friendship. I'm Kelly Sullivan Walden, Dr. Dream, joined by Joey Sutton. You all know that by now. I don't think I have to keep telling you who we are. So today we are going to be talking about D in the friendship formula, and the D stands for
Dignity.
So our little recap: F is for fun and for free, R radical responsibility, I for innocence, E entitlement, N naked, and today's D for dignity. Okay, hi Joe.
Hi, Cal. So
We
formal.
so formal. I know we've been just goofballs on the other before we started, so we're trying to be professional, but I don't know how well that's going to work out. We'll try. Well, since I mean today is for dignity, so you'd think we'd be really dignified, but we'll see what happens. Okay, so this is a big one. This is kind of the tent pole, the centerpiece of the whole thing, really. So, what is dignity to you, Joe? And how does that relate to friendship? Dignity.
Oh
What's that about?
my God. Okay. I love that you called it the tent pole.
Hmm.
You're so right. Okay. You think I'm going to start somewhere, but then there's like, I hear things like kind of come through my brain and
Yeah.
they want to come out this way. So this is
Go
what I
do
just
it.
heard. If we don't have some form of faith, some form of spiritual life, some sort of foundation of trust in the flow of life or the river of life. It doesn't have to be the God word. If you have a problem with that, it doesn't have to be religious. You don't even have to use the word spiritual. You could use the word nature, where there's something bigger than us that we can surrender ourselves to. If we don't have that, it's hard to practice the D for dignity word, because dignity means trusting someone's process. Thank you, my mom, Madeline
Hello,
Weber,
Madeline Weber.
who offered that. We've talked about it a couple times in these other
Mm-hmm.
episodes.
Mm-hmm.
My mom, I used to go to my mom, and sometimes I would have financial troubles, and sometimes she would write me a check if I had an issue. And one day I called her, I'm like, I'm really having trouble. And instead of writing me a check, she said, I trust your process. And I thought, oh God, I need money. I don't trust my process.
Just write me a damn check.
Just write me
How
a
about
check.
give me the damn checkbook? Right.
Yeah. And then I thought, wait a minute. She trusts my process. I went to her for help and she would help me, which kind of indicated that maybe I needed help, that maybe she
Mm-hmm.
didn't trust my process. And one
Mm.
day, it doesn't mean that, but like some of us can get reliant upon help and not trust our own process, because if we say we need help and someone provides the help, that maybe they're also saying you can't help yourself. And so when my mom said, I trust your process, I felt this welling up of self-esteem happen. Like, my mom believes in me. My mom trusts my problem-solving abilities. My mom thinks I'm creative. My mom thinks I'm capable. Like, I kind of got puffed up in
Mm.
a way that I hadn't known. And I had thought I wanted her help. Like, that's what I wanted. And that's what would have done it for me. But what she gave me was so much more valuable. She gave me the dignity of my process. So I dedicate the D for dignity to my mom, because I
Mm-hmm.
feel like she's the one that basically said, I trust your process. So as far as friendship goes, I think trusting our friends' process, trusting their flow in life, trusting the dead ends that they have to go to, trusting the crashes that they may have to have, trusting that what they're driven to do, what they're moved to do, what they're moved not to do, even if it doesn't meet your logic. Trusting their processes, in a way, trusting the God word, the divine intelligence, the flow of nature, the river of life. It shows that I am not God. I am not the end all be all see all of your life. I don't know what's right for you. You might even need to crash, and that might be right for you. All I can say is, I love you. I want what's best for you. I'm afraid. I'm nervous. But to have humbleness and to say, I don't know what's right for you, is friendship. Is one of my rules for friendship. Is one of your rules for friendship. So the D for dignity encapsulates all of that trust of another person's process, dignifying their relationship with their own divine intelligence, higher power, spirit, nature, whatever you want to call it, that there's a flow that they are involved in that's right for them, that has a timing of its own. So I'm going to stop now, because I'm sure that you were popping like popcorn over that, and see what your response is to that, and any personal stories that you want.
That was so good. Well, I kind of want to dive into one of yours.
Okay.
And I know I have plenty of my own, but I know in the recent, I don't know, let's just say recently-ish, there was someone in your life that had a very strong opinion about the certain ways that you should be and things that you should do. And as a friend, they thought it was important to assert their opinion over and over and over, as if to say this person knew better than you about how to run your life. And I feel like in many ways, the D in dignity is right there in the center of this kind of a moment. So our dear friend, Nancy T, she says to me sometimes, some people are hard to watch live. And it's true. And some people, it's hard to trust their process.
Yes.
Or we can trust their process kind of like
at
in
a
way at a distance. Exactly. That might mean I trust your process just because I inherently trust the process, because I inherently have a spiritual relationship to life. And even if a person's going to crash and burn, who's to say that that's not the best teacher for what they need to learn? And so yes, it may be hard to watch somebody in their process, but I feel like the thing that happened to you recently, I feel like this is it. Like if somebody can't genuinely say, I trust your process, and maybe say it once, like, hey, I've got something that's challenging, I need to say, and they do all the things that we talked about in the previous episode, the naked episode, where you preface all the things and then you say the hard thing. You say it. It's like you drop the hanky, you plant the seed, you say the thing, and then you shut up. Then you walk away, you go away, you see what happens, you see what the other person does. And if they don't take your advice, or they don't pick up what you're throwing down, then you might say, well, the natural consequence of that is that I need to kind of move myself away in the rings of Saturn. I don't have to tell you that necessarily. I don't need to tell you, you were at ring 2, but now you're at ring 10. Just need to let you know that this is all internal, because it's so fluid. But that may be the natural consequence of me. Let me just imagine that it's me. Me having my dignity means I'm not reaching across the aisle and trying to make you do your life the way I think you should. Like the audacity of that. And I have that audacity sometimes, thinking that I know better and I know best. If people could just read the script that I've written for them, they'd be fine. But I have to check that, drop it, torch that script, and trust the process. So I keep my dignity by going, let go, let God, or let higher power, let you do you. And then I imagine that it is you have, I'm also not, I can't grant you your dignity, because your dignity is yours. It's not something I can give or take away, but it's something I can support by saying the thing and then letting it go, and not having to like cram it in your face until you do it. Like, you're not my child. You're not 5 years old running in front of a bus.
And I didn't
If
ask.
it, that's a big
Per-
piece.
P
Asking
should be for
permission.
permission. Yeah. P should be
Right,
for permission.
exactly. Because we could say, are you open to my feedback? Are you
Right.
open to I have a very strong instinct about this decision you're about to make, or this relationship you're in, or this job you're about to take. Are you open to hearing it? And you may say, not right now, or give me a few minutes, or
No.
no, or okay, make it short and sweet. Okay, I do this with Dana all the time. Dana has an opinion about everything I do. And I let him know, your opinion is really valuable to me. I take in everything you say. It doesn't mean I'm going to do exactly what you say, but I deeply consider your feedback. It goes through my filter for sure. And even if it doesn't look like I'm honoring it at all, it's not because it hasn't been considered. And that may be the best I can do. Okay, back to you, Buff.
Boy, okay.
What did that bring
Ooh,
up for you?
Yeah, that brought up a lot. Okay. Okay, so first of all, in this person's rule book, this friend of mine, I think in her rule book, it was like, you fight for someone and you love them so much that you are willing to risk your entire relationship in order to save their life.
Right.
And so I just want to honor the good intentions of this person, because a lot of the things that she wanted from me was to have a better life, to make better, more loving decisions, to make sure I was treated well. And she was fighting for that. So I bless those good intentions. I bless those good intentions. And sometimes you got to have someone say that stuff in order for you to even see it. You know, some of us can get used to things that are yucky. You know, I don't want to see you accept abuse or lack of love or criticism or judgment or unkindness of any kind. And I would preface some things and tell you how I feel about it if you gave me permission. And then if you said,
you have permission, by the way.
yeah,
Sorry.
and you've
Carte
given me
blanche.
permission, and
I've done
I've
that.
given, yeah.
You know that.
But we always
We've
end
earned
up
it.
trusting each other's dignity and trusting each other's choices. And we've always ended up there. And one of the things that I love, my very first therapist, Eleanor, who just passed away last year, she used to say, view what's happening with curiosity. Approach it with curiosity. Don't approach it with assumption. Approach it with curiosity. And I made some funky choices. I made some funky choices that ended up in some of the worst crashes of my life. And she approached it with curiosity. She watched me with curiosity until I completely crashed and broke. And guess what that brought me to? That brought me to Al-Anon. That brought me to my hands and knees. That brought me to the beginning of codependent recovery. It brought me to the beginning of unraveling my superhero cape. It brought me to the beginning of questioning my belief that I had so much control over the world. It brought me to the most important life-changing aspects of my world. Had I simply not done the thing that I was doing that everyone was worried about and should have been worried about, because good God, I crashed. Had I not done it, and I just listened to everyone, I was like, okay, I'm going to break up with that person right away. Had I not done that, I probably would have repeated this cycle over and over and over again. I wouldn't have gotten to Al-Anon. I wouldn't have started my codependent recovery. I wouldn't have given up my superhero cape, and I'd still be trying to control things here and now. And you and I probably would not be the friends we are if I was still doing those things. So I feel like one of the ways that this has really complemented and supported our friendship is that, you know, we've chosen relationships with, and we've talked about this in, you know, in the last episode, we've chosen relationships that are very challenging and full of diamonds and jewels. And the challenge has been a function of us working out our own traumas and our own triggers with the perfect partners that touch those traumas and triggers so that we can work them out. Some people that don't have the same commitment to radical responsibility that you and I have would have maybe run from ourselves, from the other person, from the reflection that the other person's giving us about ourselves. We would have run. That's not what you and I have chosen to do. We've chosen to stay and look. And because we've stayed and looked, there have been times when you and I have said, oh my God, that is really challenging what you're facing. And the lower part of me, the animal brain part of me, has wanted you to run sometimes and has wanted me to run sometimes. And having said that, that's not the agreement you and I made. We're still playing by radical responsibility. We're still playing by taking responsibility for every reflection that happens in our relationship and using it as fodder to work out our traumas and to stay for the gems and the jewels that our relationships give, because they are well earned. And we started off many of our sessions saying you can't make new friends, old friends. You can't make old friends. Well, you can't earn a long-term relationship in a short term. You can't just keep giving them up and starting over and giving them up and starting over and having what we've built in our personal relationships. They are full of beauty, and they are our treasure troves. They are our riches, and we earned them. Every single brick and stone that has built the cathedral of our relationships have been earned. And because of that, you and I play this radical responsibility game, and we give each other the dignity of working through our issues with our partner and facing ourselves radically and keeping each other accountable to not running. We have an agreement that you cannot run, because if you're running, you're on fire. And if you're on fire, you're not in responsibility. You're in reactivity. So that's what I have to say about that. Okay. The relationship that you mentioned, I tried numerous times to ask in several different ways for space, to stop talking about me and my issues, that I deprived that person of the right to speak about me this way anymore. 10, 12 different kinds of communication saying, please stop. Please stop.
This is just to be clear, this is the friend that was trying to insist that you change your life in some way, that you do something different. So yeah. I just want to make sure that's clear.
Yes. So eventually we just stopped talking, and we tried to, get in there again. And then a little bit, just like I tried to show kindness and just like still not ready to talk. And I didn't feel that my space was still being respected the way I wanted. And eventually she just said she didn't want to talk to me anymore. And so I have let it go. I still know that her original intention is loving, and the format that it came in didn't feel loving, and I didn't feel the dignity. I didn't feel dignified. I didn't feel respected in my process. And so she was instrumental in me claiming more self-love, which also included making some of the parts of my life that she was judging better, with more radical responsibility. Sometimes when you hear people are struggling in relationship, you want to blame the partner, because you love your friends so much. You see them in their innocence and you love them so much, but you and I see each other's innocence, but we also reflect to each other our part in our thinking and our behavior that can be leveled up, because we hold each other responsible for our relationships and how we feel in our relationships. So I'm going to stop talking now and give the ball back to you. But this was an important lesson.
Yeah. Oh my God. Brings up so much. So this is a little bit of a little bit off the dignity path, but I think it connects in some way. Before I got together with Dana, my hubby, I would have called myself a serial monogamist. I had been in, I don't know, 10 different long-ish term relationships, anywhere from a year to 3 years to 5 years. So I don't know, it's about that. And so that's those relationships. I wasn't just like I'd leave every moment. It got hard, but for the most part, if it got hard and it stayed hard, I was out of there. It was my I would my what I called myself to myself was back alley Sally. The moment I would see something funky or I wouldn't feel good, I would immediately look for the back door. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that, because I think there is a time and a place to leave. And it takes something to leave. It's not easy to leave when you've already established a relationship. It's hard. So, and do I have any regrets about any of the relationships I left? No, I don't, because I feel like who I was back then and who they were back then, like, I don't think we were right for each other. However, when I got together with Dana, I felt like, oh, I'm in a whole different ball game here. There's so much soul that we share, so much. There's like the goods, the pros outweighs the cons, and some of the challenges have been intense, but the what's in it for me to stay, to work it out, has been huge. So I have become a different person. I'm not back alley Sally anymore. I've been with Dana. We've been married 21 years. We've been together almost 25 years. And yeah, that, and I have switched, because there's some saying, and I wish I knew the quote off the top of my head, but it says something like, you can dig hundreds of shallow wells and never hit the water, or you can just focus on one well and just keep digging, and you're going to find stone, you're going to find concrete, you're going to find, but keep digging and you'll eventually get to water. But if you stop with every relationship just because it's hard, you hit something that isn't what you want, and then you're just going to start another well, then so that's fine, that's your process. But my values have changed. I value depth, and I value deep quality, and I value the trust that comes only from sticking through it, working through things. Those have become a greater value than just the moment to moment ease. There was so this is kind of more of like a picture of my value in relationship in general, but I could copy and paste what I just said about Dana and I onto you and onto like my deep, long lasting friendships. There was this thing, and I also want to memorize it. And I'm like, where is this picture? It was my friend Wendy Kaplan's guest bathroom. And I'm like, oh, this is it. It had these two really funny looking people, a man and a woman. And they had like, you have it? The pointy head and the pointy boobs and the pointy whatever. So it's these two that are like kind of battling, and it says something like, he's got a point or she has a point, but so did he. And their points eventually, they worked. They like battled it out together and eventually softened, and there were no more of these rough edges. And I thought, that's me and Dana.
Hello, friend. So this is the space in our show where we would normally do a commercial, but since we're a new show, we don't have sponsorship yet. We're going to do it a little differently. But if you have a product or service that you think our friends would be interested in, then reach out to us ASAP at info@anatomyoffriendship.com. And in the meantime, Joey and I have a couple things up our sleeves. So, Joe, what's up yours? What's up yours? What's in your sleeves rattling around?
Well, as a holistic health counselor, I have a few spots available left on my book. And I'm really excited right now about the communication strategies I've been studying regarding neurodivergence and speaking to people who are struggling. And that's a massive thing going on in our world right now. Cal?
You are so good at that. Oh my goodness. So what I've got going on is you can go to my website, kellysullivanwalden.com. And if that's too hard to spell, go to ihadthestrangestdream.com. And there's a place where you can book a private session with me if you've got dream questions. Also, I've got my books and oracle cards on there. Speaking of oracle cards, the latest one that just came out is Wild Dreams Animal Oracle. This is from Blue Angel Publishing, and this has 44 animals. So it's kind of about like, what if you dream about animals, what are they trying to tell you? Mostly, spoiler alert, they're trying to tell you to just let loose and become more of your wild, fully expressed, passionate self.
So we paused the recording for a second because Joey found it. And while she's reading it to anyone who can see this show visually, you will see, I'm going to pull it up on the screen share. So go ahead and read it, Joe.
All right. And it's really gross, everyone.
It's really
And
gross. It's really gross, but it's really important.
Cause for pause. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So it says exactly his point, not exactly hers. Yet they stayed together, poking one another until their holes matched and they were able to align their opposing points of view. So for those of you that can't see this, it's a man and a woman, and they're grotesquely
They look like little demons.
illustrated, and they have like
They're like in a
spears coming
tango.
out of their body, and they're entangled with each other, and their spears are going through each other until they could get near each other. So this is why their opposing points of view started to match.
Exactly
because
his point, not
Yeah.
exactly hers. Yet they
Yeah.
stayed together, poking one another until their holes matched, and then they were able to align through opposing points of view.
Their opposing points of
Their
view. This
opposing
is
points of
yeah,
view.
this is not for children.
It is. Oh yeah. P.S. But oh my God, I love it. All right, I'm going to stop it now. Stop the share.
Okay.
Go away. And I don't know who the artist is, but kudos to you, even though we just said not very nice things about you, but it's a very important piece, I think. So. I feel
Yes.
like that's the beauty of that, is that over time we find our way together. Like I remember Nirvana Gale, who, God bless him, he used to tell me when I would come in to his office with so many different relationships. It was like the revolving door. Who's Kelly going to bring to a session next week? And I was always upset with every relationship, and and he would say all these things, they're fine that they're challenges for you, but if you stick it out with somebody, at some point these things are just not going to be important. Like he said, he and his wife at some point used to fight and bicker about all kinds of little things, and then after a while you just love each other and you just are grateful for each other, and certain things just don't matter, and there's bigger things that are more important, but you've negotiated those things. And so now it's like, and I feel like I've earned this phase with Dana, and I know we've gone off, we're not even talking about dignity right now anymore, but I guess the payoff of working through a relationship is that you can get to a place where there's this deep level of trust and deep level of melted heart to heart, soul to soul, where those jagged points no longer are so pointy and no longer so important. And you're just like, okay, this is how we manage these things. This is how I always have to give Dana notice before we do things. He's not as spontaneous as I am. And if, so I know he's going to grumble before we do this. So I have already built in space for that, but I make a federal case about those things. And that took years. So I'm glad you trust my process, even though there have been moments where it might have been hard, because I've downloaded many a download to you, and you've been a big part of the alchemy.
And you.
So
Well,
I kind of go ahead. Do you want to say something about that before I switch gears slightly?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, in the world of friendship, last episode we talked about a friend of mine that I hurt dramatically, and her concern about having a continued relationship with me was, I'm afraid you're going to hurt me again. And I really wanted to dignify her with her fear of like,
Mm-hmm.
wow, if Joey's capable of hurting me this way once, is she capable of hurting me this way again? And she talked about, like, I was thinking about letting the relationship go. And I was like, I could totally understand why you would, because friendships are so, I want to bring it back to friendship and bring it back to dignity before we go off another
Yeah.
direction. Friendships are so, and our hearts are so tender and vulnerable. And, you know, most of us are not as crispy or strong as we look. We're tender. And I really wanted to dignify the protection of her heart, even if it was against me. I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to dignify
Right.
her
Ooh.
safety, even if it was keeping me away from her. And
Mm.
I don't know, I just wanted to say that
Mm-hmm.
because dignifying is sometimes at our own sacrifice.
Peril or loss or sacrifice. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. All right, what were you going to say?
Well, okay, that brought me to a whole other thing. But let me say the thing I was going to say before, which is I think one version of dignity that is massive. Dignity is really an elegant word for emotional regulation. So if I get triggered ever by anyone, it doesn't take that much. I mean, I can't even, like, in the middle of the night last night, I got up to tinkle and Dana got up behind me, but I didn't know it. It's dark, my eyes are closed, and we bumped into each other in the hallway and I was like, "What?" And I could, the thought bubble over my head was so furious. Like, how didn't you see me die? Like, how could you? Why did, like, how rude? And but I mean, you woke me up. And I mean, I was just instant ball of fury. Like, and it's ridiculous. I mean, he had to pee. He has a right. He didn't mean to bump into me. He didn't mean to startle me and wake me up. And like, he didn't mean that at all. But in the moment, I was so, like, it just triggered all of this limbic brain stuff that I just wanted to scorch him. I just wanted to scorch him. But I've gotten in the habit not of suppressing my rage, because we definitely, if it's like real rage, that we share it with each other, we send it to each other, we do something with it. But I was aware this is probably not legit. Like, it probably it's probably not going to make us closer. It's probably not like a legitimate point, but there's a part of me when I'm triggered that feels like, but it is legit. And it is to a part of me. So I'm the one that needs to validate that to me. Like, honey, you were scared. You were startled. Yes, it's a bummer. You're fully awake. It's going to be hard to go back to sleep. And you notice if he gets up, you like to wait or make some noise so that he doesn't get startled. Like, you have a right to this. But I got to hold myself. It's kind of, that'll be one of the things that come up.
Tools.
Oh, yeah.
No.
Uh,
H.
H is for hold yourself. So it's like,
yeah.
So it was a holding myself, and I didn't put it on him. I kept my dignity. It's like if somebody goes postal, all the people in the post office or in the line at the grocery store, in the line at the bank are like, oh, that person just lost it. And they've lost. When the person goes berserk, they lose. When I give into my berserkness, I lose my dignity, and therefore I lose the right in many ways to the relationship, to all the good things that I've put in. They could be gone in a second. One blurt like that can be the end. I mean, I know many a relationship, not necessarily mine, but like one trigger and then that kind of reactive spewage, that's it. I know one person, she was pregnant and she was with the guy who's the baby daddy. They're planning to get married. He said something and she just said, "Get the F out of here." And he did. And that was it. Never saw him again. Like it's to scratch that itch that is so itchy. It just would feel so good just to itch it, to scratch it. It's like for that momentary second, it would feel good and satisfying to just blurt and hurl. But that equals a loss of dignity. And there is no end to the ramifications of that. So part of dignity is on our side of the fence, our ability to keep our dignity. And if somebody loses their dignity with us, then they get to go to a further edge of Saturn. We might get to say something, give them a little chance once, maybe twice, but if that's the way they roll, then we let them get a little further out on Saturn. Okay, anything you want to say on that?
Oh my God. Yeah. I mean, I don't want to repeat what you said because you just
But
said
say it in your own way,
important.
'cause-
Yeah, no, the important thing is it reminded me of that therapist that I had years ago when I was married. And I used to lose my temper all so often. I repressed my upsets. I said what I wanted. I didn't get the response I wanted, and I would lose my temper. And in my home growing up, there was a lot of temper losses going on. So that was somewhat
Mine
normal.
too.
Like if you're
Mine
upset,
too.
this is what happens. You lose your temper, and you say things you don't mean, and you say it in a mean way, and just, it's not nice. And so in my marriage, I was causing a lot of damage, and distrust. And, that doesn't make for a good intimate life with someone when they're afraid of you and they're afraid of what you're going to do when you're mad. It's like emotionally slapping someone. When they talk about emotional abuse, we talk about emotional abuse, you don't have to hit somebody. You just slap them with your words. And I had a black belt tongue. I could say some things that were very, very hurtful. And like we were talking about, is it the last time about the holes in the fence? And you can say something and you can say you're sorry, but when you pull that nail out of the fence, you still leave a hole. And so my therapist at the time said, you have a lot of valid reasons for being upset. But when you lose your cookies, when you overreact, when you get rageful, what was the word I used earlier? When you lose your temper, when you lose your temper, you lose your dignity and you lose your right to your upset, because now your expression is worse than the original offense and all the attention is on you. He says, so if you want to have a right and a validity to your upsets, you must take a break and wait till you're calm and bring that back and talk about it like an adult. And I was like, huh? What do you mean?
No.
I couldn't understand what he was talking about, because I was flooded with so much adrenaline that if I was going to engage, I didn't realize that I had, lost my frontal lobe was no longer in charge. I was no longer thinking of consequences for my behavior. I was thinking from my limbic system and through my animal brain. And my animal brain was fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. We can talk about another time. But I would go into fight, and my fight was through this angry, rageful way of speaking that left my husband at the time feeling slapped and hurt and emotionally abused. And then he was afraid of me. And then his fear of me turned into passive aggressiveness. And the more passive aggressive he was, the more angry I got and the more I raged. And it was this cycle of me having to learn to have dignity. And that dignity resulted in what you and I call the not talking above a 3. And so that 3, we talked about another episode, but just because it's here and I want to leave people with a tiny tool. We have like a Richter scale of 1 to 10 Richter scale of adrenaline, and anything below a 3 is negotiable. I can kind of stay in my frontal lobe and keep my heart open. But once I hit a 3 out of 10, and you kind of all have to know where that is for yourself, but I have like heat of adrenaline starts to tingle in my body, and then it rushes up my stomach, and then it rushes into my head, and then my skin starts to burn from adrenaline. So when I start to feel a tingle, I know I'm approaching a 3. And if I'm at a 3 or above, I don't talk. I do not talk. Exit stage left. I have, I'll tell my friends if I'm triggered above a 3. I'll tell my partner if I'm triggered above a 3. I'll tell my son or my mom or whoever it is. If I have a trigger anywhere near a 3 or above, I leave the room or close my mouth to protect my relationship, my friendship, and myself and my dignity. And so I just wanted to put the exclamation point on what you talked about, which is so important, which is protecting your own dignity so that you can have good things in life. I have one more thing to say, and then I will hand the ball back to you. And that is something I heard Marianne Williamson say, our brilliant new thought leader who loves to talk about A Course in Miracles and has written
That I
so
hope will
many
become
books
president one day.
and who is right,
Oh my
wanting to
God.
run for president or tried to run for president last year.
And
or
she's
last
running
time.
again.
And running again. I didn't know she was running again. Okay.
Yeah.
So one of the things I heard her say is guilt attracts punishment. And the greatest form of punishment you could incur is to not receive love. So if that formula is true, if I lose my dignity, I lose my tongue, I speak above a 3, I say what I don't mean, or I mean when I say what I do mean, then I will eventually feel guilty if I'm not a sociopath. If I have a conscience, I will feel guilty, and that guilt will deprive me of feeling worthy of love. And so it's selfish of me, it's self-serving of me, it's self-loving of me to not lose my temper, to not scratch the itch of wanting to say that mean thing, because I want what's most precious in life, which is love. So it's not just because I'm trying to protect you that I don't say mean things to you. I'm trying to protect myself because I want love in my life. Okay.
Holy Lord, honey, that was so many mic drop moments, but we're not dropping the mic just yet. We still have a few more minutes. So years ago, I was in church, and we might have already talked about this somewhere in one of the previous episodes, but I heard Reverend Michael Beckwith talking about how on a spiritual path, the ideal scenario is to, when we get triggered by a person, place, circumstance, instead of acting out, we turn within to see if we can identify the place of disconnection from source, from spirit, from God. So there was something in that was such a huge aha for me. And in my mind, I thought of it as this is what it would be to be undisturbable. Like to be, I mean, which is a lofty goal to be for sure, but to at least not act out from a disturbance, to not be disturbed, which is another way for saying undignified. So you and I, Joey, you and I, and Nancy T, and my mom we made a whole thing. My mom, we're giving our moms a lot of props these days.
Yeah, tell the story about your mom.
My mom had this whole thing about the A to Z challenge, so we made up this challenge, all of us, for every day that we didn't act out of a disturbance. Like maybe we get disturbed and we feel the rumble, but we do instead of acting out, we turn within. I imagine that I'm adjusting my spiritual umbilical cord and I'm connecting to source and breathing, and then checking in to see what needs to be done. Once I'm reconnected, there might not be much to do. There might be a little something to say or a little something to fix, but mostly the issue is solved when I just readjust my umbilical cord. It's as if to say, I'm right sized because I'm connected with God or connected with source, as opposed to you're my God and I got to come out and reach out and grab you, fix you, make you be the way I need you to be in order for me to have peace. So we made this game. So for every day that we didn't act out above a 3 on the Richter scale, 0 being Zen monk, calm, om, and 10 being I will boil your bunny, like from a Fatal Attraction place. So the 3, and because our assertion is that if we pass a 3 from 4 to 10, it happens like in a blink. But from 1 to 3, there's, okay, I'm feeling a little rumble. I'm feeling a little, something's a little funky. There's still some connection to the prefrontal cortex, which is the decision-making, logical part of us that can think the action through. Like they say in 12 steps, or in AA, think the drink through. Imagine, like I did last night, I felt the and think the drink through. Oh my God, if I completely decimate Dana, there will go my marriage. And oh my God, I don't want to hurt him. Like, okay, so let me just process it within myself. Okay, so we would get a letter for each day. So starting with A.
If we didn't act out of our disturbance from
Yes.
morning till night.
Yes. And the first person to get to Z won the prize, whatever that prize was. $20, lunch, a new shirt,
Dignity.
whatever. Dignity, most of all. So this is a little game. If somebody's, if you're watching this or listening to this and you're like, but I act out a lot, I don't know how I can do it. It's a muscle to develop. And one thing that I found while we were playing this game, here's the payoff. At the onset, I thought, I get upset or disturbed every once in a while. Not much. I'm a happy person. I'm a happy girl. I'm an easy breezy little buttercup. I was shocked at what a trigger happy drama queen I really was. I mean, it was daily, sometimes multiple times daily, that the spew wanted to come out of my mouth. And because we played this game, I didn't do it. I was refraining. I wanted to win our game. I was like, my ambition kicked in. I'm like, I want to rock this. There was even one day that I was so triggered by Dana, and he was chasing me around the house. I'm like, Dana? And this is before he knew we were playing a game. So I was like, I didn't want to tell him until I knew I could do it. But I was like, we're not going to talk right now. I'm too triggered. Just leave me alone. He was like, no, let's talk. I'm like, Dana, no. I finally locked myself in the bathroom. Locked myself in. Normally somebody locks themselves in the bathroom because they've got a rager outside. I was the rager locking myself in so I wouldn't hurt him. And I remember calling you and being like, I'm in the bathroom. He's outside. At any minute, I'm like, I don't want to lose my letter for today. And you were like, honey, you still get your letter. You're doing exactly right. And somebody who knew about our game said, so every time you get mad, you just suppress it. So we just get better and better at suppressing. I'm like, no, because that is a whole other ball of wax. That's a whole other hurt that we don't want to hurt ourselves. We don't want to suppress ourselves. We want to find a healthy outlet for that, like talking about it to you, a neutral party, somebody that didn't trigger us, or going on a walk, going on a jog, exercising is a great place to put this energy. So, and I didn't realize it. So we played this game for months, and I finally told Dana, but I started to notice, here's the payoff of this whole story. I found that Dana, who I thought was the problem, he stopped being the problem. He started to become so much softer, so much more loving, so much more communicative, so much more connective, which is what I wanted and what I would rail about not getting. But he, it turns out, was scared of me. And his scaredness produced defensiveness, all of his defensiveness was what I didn't like. But he wasn't going to drop his defensiveness around somebody that at any moment was going to lose her shit. So I got what I wanted, which was like a heart to heart, soul to soul. And he's come to trust me for the most part. That's who he's got. And now he might say, nah, she still loses her cookies. But the proof is in the pudding. He's a softer, kinder, more available, more accessible partner as a result of what I've done. So it is the most selfish thing we can do to keep our dignity. All right. Bye.
All right. Self-loving thing we could do to keep our dignity. It's the
And
most
I think
self-loving.
selfish is okay. Like the good kind of selfish, selfish with the capital S selfish. Yes. That's like, this is in it for me. It's like, just like being a giver, being a humanitarian is the most selfish thing we can do. It's, we get what we give.
Right.
Back
oh my God!
Okay, what did that bring up?
No, I just wanted.
We have just a few minutes, but yeah,
I just wanted to cry. I just wanted to cry because That game was hard. And sometimes we didn't even make it to Z,
Oh
sometimes we
no.
didn't make it off a B before someone else won,
Right.
But I just want to acknowledge what you said about, so you suppress yourself. No, you don't suppress
No.
yourself. And what you said was great about how you manage the itch. It's like you call a friend, you go for a walk, you go for exercise or whatever.
Journal.
Right. But it's like the people that say, well, I need to express myself. It's a choice. When you express yourself in a particular way, just because you feel the itch doesn't mean you should express
You act
that
like a
itch.
bitch.
You know what? That's good. Just because you feel the itch, don't become a bitch.
Right.
Because whatever you put out, you do get back. And it's like, if you want to participate in the infinity cycle of he hurt me, so I hurt him back, and she hurt me, so I hurt her back, whatever that is, then we're being like kindergartners. He hit me, so I hit her back. That's what you do in kindergarten. We're adults. It's not an eye for an eye. Everybody ends up blind. So I just want to thank you for that story. And I'm just thinking about how there's a window right outside your bathroom, and he could have come and he could have talked you through the window.
Oh no, this was we lived in the Hollywood Hills, so this was a different. So there was no getting in. There was no getting in.
Good. All right.
Oh, thank God! I know. Thank God we didn't live here. He would have been. He would have been dust.
Yes. Yeah.
Dust.
And and also I just want to add one more thing about the disturbability thing. It's not just about yelling and raging. We started to practice the importance of not tisking, rolling eyes,
slamming a door,
sneering. None of those things are allowed in our game. If you did any of those things, you could lose your letter as well. Those things are acting out of disturbability.
Just like, I mean, sometimes I would say there's gradations. The goal is to be Mary Poppins at all times, or like the Zen Buddhist monk version of ourselves. But I would say an eye roll is better than a F-bomb, in my
there's always
book.
room to level up. Yeah, there's always room to level up our undisturbability. And you're right. And sometimes we talked about like, maybe you should have lost your letter, but you're not going to lose your letter, because after all, you didn't say anything. You fumed and you walked away. So,
and it's
whatever.
the awareness, like you had the awareness, like I am having this. So please, like I'm going to walk and setting up that agreement with our partner or with our friends before, like, if I walk away because I'm at a 3 or above, you trust that I'm going on a walk or I'm walking away in order to de-escalate so that I can come back and we can talk. It's not like I'm leaving forever and that's it. You'll never hear from me again. No, it's to come back so there can be sanity,
and
emotional regulation.
For people that are afraid of being abandoned, that agreement happens in advance. Like, I'm walking away to protect you and us, and I will come back. And that agreement is made when you're not in a disturbed place. So for anyone that's thinking about doing this, we want to know that there's rules around this game as well to make sure that everyone's taken care of, and not just leave the scene on fire and leave that person there. So I let you close out. That was awesome. Dignity is our favorite.
I think it's one of our faves, if not the favorite.
Well, I don't know. We love them all.
Okay, so this is going to be like a non sequitur right at the end, but this is one little thing that's been kind of jabbering. So years ago, Stephanie Meyer wrote a series of books called Twilight. It was all these books about this benevolent vampire that's in love. Everybody knows it. So, and it became all these movies. And one of the things that Joey, you and I would talk about is Edward and how dignified he was, because he knew he was no good for Bella. So he let her, like he said, I am going to let you go. This kind of goes back to what you were saying about this friend, this conversation you were having with somebody else about, like, I am willing to let you go because I don't want to hurt you. I don't want to, I don't know that I can trust myself and my dignity. Like, there's certain people in my world I wish would say that to me. I wish they had enough self-awareness to say, you know what? I still have a problem with my emotional regulation. I'm going to get back to you once I have more of a grip on that. I don't demand that you be in my life while I still act out and I hurt you. So I feel like Edward in that book, he is kind of in many ways the poster child of what a certain version of dignity looks like, the willingness to let go of somebody you love because you know that you might not have the restraint to not hurt them. So you take it upon yourself to walk away as opposed to guilt tripping somebody or manipulating them to get your needs met. It's coming from a pretty high place, I would say.
Yeah. Okay. Hold on. I have to say something here. All right. Just to even the playing field.
Yeah.
Jacob was the werewolf that was in love with Bella.
Yeah.
And he was constantly trying to get her to stop seeing Edward. And many of us,
we're on Team Jacob.
Because I'm sorry, she was so codependently in love with a vampire and she was going to die to be with him. These are some serious codependent issues. And Jacob was like, he was like the, what's it called when you have, Jacob was like the intervention team. Like, are you crazy? You're gonna die there. And she's like, stop, Jacob. Don't you worry about my life. So what if I die? You know? And Jacob's like, you
trust my process, Jacob.
Exactly. So I just, you know, this friend that was in my life, I just want to say she was Jacob for me, and God bless her. She loved me and didn't want to see me harmed and hurt or endangered. And she believed I was, and I gave her reason to believe that I was. So bless her heart for how many ways she was willing to risk our relationship and the end of our relationship to try to save me. Now, the issue wasn't that I had, you know, an Edward in my life, but she believed it was. And I gave her some reason to believe that. So I just want to bless her and say, we understand Team Jacob. And
we're looking for her innocence. Right.
Yes. And as far as Team Edward goes, yeah, you know, stick to your own kind, dude.
But it totally worked out with them. I mean, but Edward was also like thousands and thousands of years old or hundreds of years old because as a vampire he got to reincarnate. So he earned a bit of wisdom, but I think there's that. So I think it takes that ancient part of ourselves that can see the big picture and that can bypass our immediate gratification and say, you know, it's like the Hippocratic oath, do no harm. We don't want to harm anyone. And the people we love are the ones that we harm the most. I mean, jails are filled with people that committed crimes of passion because they were in love and they didn't get their needs met and they acted out. And whoever they were with added fuel to the fire and crimes happen. And I know I have been just an inch away from being one of those people. I could feel it. I mean, I think any of us are. I think we all could go there. And I think for people who aren't in relationship, they're often, I think so much of our viability to be like a good partner. And like you said before, based on that Marianne Williamson quote, we feel worthy of love. It's because of this simple thing. And it's not easy, but it's simple. The emotional regulation that leads to dignity. And when we feel like, you know what, I'm dignified. Like I don't act out on people anymore. I trust myself that I can hold myself. I can practice these principles. I am worthy of love. Therefore, love finds me. So if we're not finding love and not finding friendship, then it might just be that we need to prove to ourselves that we can, even when times are rough, we can hold ourselves to a high standard. And that means we have to access maybe the older, wiser part of ourselves, because there's an ancient one in all of us. So
you're so good. No, you are the ninja dream interpreter, and you just took that Edward character and created the most ninja metaphor. I love that you did that. That was fabulous.
It was so cute too.
We could keep talking, but on that, I think you probably should close us out.
We'll give people our dignity. So thank you so much for listening. We've got more coming up. The next letter is S, right? And S is for, what is S for?
Safety.
Safety. Oh my God,
Safety.
it so ties in. It's definitely related, but it's got its own nuances. So don't go anywhere. We will be back. And until we meet again, thank you so much
Thanks
for
for
being
being
our friend.
our friend.
Mwah. Sweet dreams. Thank you for joining us on Anatomy of Friendship.
If this has been helpful to you, or if you have questions or comments,
Please share them with us at anatomyoffriendship.com.
if you haven't yet, take a moment to follow, like, and subscribe to our show.
And don't forget to share it with a friend or two or a few.
Special shout out to Dana Walden at Love Hub Productions for being our engineer, producer, and for writing our friendship song.
And Karina Grandma for being the voice of our song. Take it away, Karina.
Baby,